Welcome, everyone. We'll get started in just a moment. I see we still have some people coming in, so we're just going to wait just one more moment. Okay, let's get started. Thank you all for coming. Welcome to the Gray Decision Intelligence Community College Demand Trend webinar, designed specifically for higher education professionals. This is not your average webinar. It is an opportunity to see current trends for programs, such as enrollment data, and gain insights into how qualified data can be used for comprehensive academic program evaluation. Today, we will also show the importance of looking at regional data trends, as they can vary quite a bit from national trends. Stick around for the very end when we showcase the future of program planning through a new predictive model. A few housekeeping items to get started with. At the bottom of your Zoom screen, there's a place labeled Q&A. Please feel free to add your questions there. We will get to as many as we can during this session, and we'll follow up later with you if we run out of time. You will receive a link to the webinar recording and presentation slides in the next few days. Please look for it in your email. And now, without further ado, I'd like to pass things over to Zach Paz to get us started.
Awesome. Thank you, Marianne. Welcome, everyone, to this month's edition of our Demand Trends webinar. I'm joining you from Phoenix, Arizona. So thank you again for joining. So our typical agenda for today is just to remind everyone kind of what program evaluation system is and why you might want to leverage this kind of framework. We'll go through the demand trends, both from a student perspective, but also an employer perspective, and then also dig into 3 states' specific data to understand how the demand for programs and employer demand change by region. And if there's a state that, if one of these 3 states is not your state, I do welcome you to reach out to us, and we'd be happy to produce, the 5 or few slides that we have specific to your state. So please don't hesitate to reach out, and I will mention that again at the end. So why a program evaluation system? When you're thinking about how you manage your academic programs, there's more than just workforce data, and there's more than just let's offer what the faculty want to offer as 2 examples. You really want to bring all of the different pieces together that are important to managing a program portfolio. First, starting with mission. Why are you an institution? How do the programs you offer relate to that mission? Keeping track of your academic standards, or I like to think of this as academic metrics. How are you measuring the success of your program, whether that's student enrollment, student success, student outcomes, faculty measures, and so on. Third is margins, understanding that not all programs will make money, and not all programs and many programs will might lose money. And ultimately, you're not a for-profit institution. You are a not-for-profit that needs to keep track and make a sustainable institution. So keeping track of margins is just an important piece to be able to support your mission. And then finally is the markets, right? And so we'll be talking about specific external, outside your 4 walls, what's going on in terms of student demand, employer, and then the other piece is understanding where your competition is, right? So starting with student demand, we like to think about the student demand in kind of the funnel, the life cycle of a student, from all the different stages that they might be in before they enter a program, then what they actually enrolled in, to what they actually completed in. So we kind of think about this as past, present, future of the life cycle of a student. What data can help us understand that? And so we're going to be looking at 3 independent data sources: Google search, where we're tracking keywords; enrollment, where students are actually recording, institutions are recording enrollment to National Student Clearinghouse; and then the iPad's completions data. Starting with what's kind of future looking in terms of what students are searching for and how many searches are going on. Again, grade tracks over 900 programs, which covers about 90% of all graduates, right? And so for each one of those programs or zip codes, we're tracking on average around 15 keywords. And so what we're seeing here is the overall trend of all of those keywords that we're tracking to give an idea of how program searches are trending over time. And so the most recent information we have is for February, and we're looking at a 5% year-over-year growth overall in searches, which is nice because we actually saw flat or down in the prior year in February. So we're up above that trending year-over-year trends. And you can see there is some seasonality to this. January always seems to be a high search month. So to see that we're down in February, that's a pretty normal trend for us to see. And that's why we like to compare that year-over-year analysis. So again, now we understand that program searches overall are growing. There are some other data that you can get from this type of source. One of them that's helpful is to understand how much does it cost to actually promote or bid on those keywords. And so we track cost per click metrics for every single one of our keywords. And so at a summary level, we can understand, is it costing more or less over time to promote your program or advertise on Google as one kind of indicator for potential marketing budget needs, trends in competition, and so you can get an idea around kind of what it's going to cost to do that. In this case, we saw a 1% increase in the cost per click across our entire database of keywords that we're tracking. So where the power comes into this is really understanding what's going on from a program perspective, right? And so we wanted to compare and understand what programs are growing. And so we can look at it by an individual zip code that we're tracking. How do they compare over time? And in this case, we're comparing February 2024 year over year. The advertising program grew 125%. So it was the fastest growing program year over year. Some of the other top growing programs, dental hygiene, magnetic resonance, imaging tech, all above 76%. And so you can see these are different program areas that are growing nationally. One that we always see or as of late is business analytics. And some of these other ones are pretty interesting. Airframe, maintenance tech, for some reason also growing 49%. And one thing we wanted to compare is, okay, are the same programs growing month over month and in different periods? And what we found is when we compared this to the September 2023 year over year, yeah, there were two programs that were consistent in that. Fashion merchandising and business analytics were both in the top 10 fastest growing programs in terms of Google searches, but the rest of the programs were not. So what we believe is that you want to keep pace with what's happening frequently, because it does change. There might even be seasonality with what programs are being searched more in from one month to another. So keeping an eye on that and having a way to review this on a monthly basis and keep track of what's trending can really help you target areas for your programs. Maybe you focus on some programs in February, and in September you switch that to focusing on some other programs in terms of advertising on Google or other platforms. All right. So again, that's what a future look at what we're doing with student demand in terms of Google searches. One of the more recent trend indicators is actually enrollment data. And so this gives us a look at, for certificate on the left side and associates on the right side, what are the national enrollment trends? And since we saw a decline in 2020, we have since seen a gradual an increase, 3% 2021, 3% 2022, and we're up to 12% in 2023. So certificates, which are undergraduate certificates, 1 year or 2 year, doesn't require any bachelor's degree or anything like that, are actually up 12%. From a long-term perspective, you can see, it's in that pretty nice trend. Now, comparing that to total fall enrollment for associate's degree, there was actually a steeper decline all the way to 2022, but now we've seen this increased 3.7% in 2023. So one of my favorite questions to ask is it me or the market? Right? If I'm experiencing decline in certificates, is everyone experiencing a decline in certificates? If I'm experiencing growth, is everyone experiencing growth? And then how do I differ relative to those changes from a national perspective? But also then you'll want to look at this locally as well. So it's always good to also compare this at a individual program level. That's our basis for why this data can be powerful, is each individual program will have different trends. So we're comparing a little bit of a longer term here, but we wanted to show you what's been consistently growing over this period. So over a 5-year compound annual growth rate, or CAGR. And so we're looking at certificate programs first. Again, undergraduate certificates. Cybersecurity has been growing 19% per year. That's an average annual growth, right? So growing 19% on average per year over the last 5 years. Then we have information technology, auto body collision and repair tech, computer and information sciences, and you can see some health programs, even real estate, surprising. Medical billing and coding, and even commercial truck and bus driver. So among the top programs, 3 of them were in healthcare, 4 of them in STEM related, and 3 career and technical education. From an associate's perspective, again, we're comparing over 5 years, what's the average growth rate? And at the associate, cybersecurity is also number 1. So it's number 1 both at the certificate level and also at the associate's level, growing an average of 20% per year. So if you see, so it's both valuable at both the certificate and associates. And we see some of the other here. The nice thing that we're seeing is that there's kind of a split between, there's an even mix. It's not all driven by one area. There's 4 healthcare related, 3 that we're categorizing as STEM, and then 3 other. Some of the ones that we're seeing in the other category: marketing coming up, building, construction, site management, and radio and television. So again, if you have these programs and they're in the top 10 compound annual growth rates over the last 5 years, are you experiencing similar growth, experiencing growth at all? Why or why not? And again, could that be a specific to your market as well? The next one we're going to talk about is using non-degree course information. So specifically, you can leverage data from some of the MOOC platforms. Specifically, we'll look at Coursera in this, and what we're looking at is what is the largest growing programs from February 2022 to February 2024. And so this is an additional enrollment change, units and enrollment change. Some of the use cases for this is identifying more emerging areas, identifying curriculum that students are interested in. These are students that are actually signing up and enrolling in these courses on Coursera, right? Of the top 10, we have 6 of them are in data and tech. So data everywhere, 1.6 million new learners over the last 2 years. Science of well-being, 834,000. foundations of user experience design, technical support fundamentals, so you can get an idea of kind of where the interest is. Crash course in Python. I think one that we continue to talk about, especially as generative AI is dominating the in many discussions, including headlines, is AI for everyone. Almost 500,000 people signed up and enrolled for this course in the last 2 years. Right. So let's switch gears. That was the latest on what's happening in terms of student demand trends. But let's switch gears to employment and current indicators. The first thing that we always like to mention is that there's a very convoluted relationship between graduates and jobs and occupations. And so we always like to share different examples of this, and specifically why it's important is because when we've studied this and back tested what did someone graduate with and then what did they end up doing, the percentage of them that go into what the National Center of Education Statistics says that they're going to do is very low percentage. And this is an example at the bachelor's level, but we're doing this also at the associate's level. And one that we looked into recently was criminal justice majors. And so if you look at criminal justice, there's a line with 10 occupations, and here are the 10 occupations here. But what we found is that when we analyzed 72,000 graduates, we identified that they go into 773 different occupations, right? There's 147 industries, very detailed industries, and they go to 88,000 different companies. And so again, even for an area where where you might think there's a direct link to some jobs, they're finding employment in many different occupations. So it's always something you want to keep track of, especially when you're looking at it from an occupational code perspective. What jobs you're looking at and how relevant is that for the outcomes of your students? And do you have data on your students and understanding where they're graduating and where they're getting employed to help inform that? And there's a lot of different data sources out there. We use profile data where we're scraping 70 million profiles, and then we're able to analyze that at associate's level, at the lowest level currently. So again, that relationship that we're talking about is something you always want to keep track of how you're analyzing employment data for programs. So what are the latest trends in job postings? We have February 2024 results. The good news is this is the first month that we've had a year-over-year increase in job postings. Since the boom of job postings in 2022, started actually in the late 2021, post-COVID, where everyone was posting a lot more jobs to fill positions. A lot of it was driven by government funding that they had. So there was a ballooning of job postings that happened. We started to see that come down towards the end of last year. And even now we feel like this is the first indicator that we're actually leveling out in terms of the trends in job postings. And in this case, 7% more job postings this February than February 2023. Some of the most frequent listed skills in job postings related to associates and below: Microsoft Office, marketing, nursing, construction, accounting, finance, project management, billing, registration, and merchandising. Project management comes up in almost all award levels. So I know that's an area where not just at the associate's level, but if you start to gain these types of skills at the certificate and the associate's level, I'm sure that can transfer very well into advancing to bachelor's and above. Again, always understanding what's what are employers requesting and making sure does your curriculum align with that? Especially does it align in your local market? And we'll look at some examples of that for the 3 states that we're highlighting this month. So what are the top growing occupations? And psychiatric technicians grew 136 job postings in February versus February last year. Software developers, heavy and tractor trailer truck drivers. You can see the rest here. This one jumped out at us, and you're going to see this not just at the national level, but also in a couple of the states that we're looking at. And so what I wanted to know is, for this occupation specifically, what are the skills that align to higher levels of wages in this area? And so what you're able to do if you have wage data associated with your job postings, like what's their listed wage, is we can understand what are the skills that are associated with higher wages. And for this occupation, the median salary was $48,880 listed in the job postings, right? And so here are the top skills listed that have a higher earnings potential. And so the top one is actually practice management software. So if you have a psychiatric technicians program, I would hope that you would also have some practice management software as part of the curriculum, because as that's one of the leading skills that leads to occupations that have a higher wage potential. You can see some of the other skills here, and what's kind of driving up those wage potential. So again, looking in your local market, seeing who's posting for these particular jobs, how does that align with your program? Are you covering these skills? Are you preparing your students to talk about these skills that they've earned in their through their programming, and just having this as a way to identify those? Again, your students might be learning all of these skills. They just might not be able to speak to it. And so understanding what they are and helping them understand that could really give them a leg up as they're looking for jobs. Some other use cases for this employment data is, in many cases, when I talk to community colleges, they have a lot of industry partners in their market. And there'll be a lot of anecdotes around, we need this type of program, we need this type of candidate, we need them to have these types of skills. Well, how do you actually validate what you're hearing from your industry partner? Is it just one of those where they have 3 job openings and they just can't find someone, and so you can build out a program, invest a lot of resources, only to realize that they filled up their positions with the first cohort of graduates, and then there's no other, no more availability, right? So that would be a worst case scenario in my book. So one thing that you can always use this for is make sure that you're able to validate what you're hearing. And a technique that we use is description searching. So here's an example of looking at robotics and automation as keywords and saying, okay, if we're hearing from an industry partner, they need candidates with robotics and automation skills, well, let's validate that. And so let's search every job posting in the market for robotics and automation and look at the month-by-month trends, look at the overall trend, and see if that's a sustainable skill set that they're looking for. And in this case, I would say, yes, it is sustainable, small, but yes, it seems to have a sustained need in the market, especially reaching back to the 2022 levels. We're at the highest in 133 in February of 2024. And then what are the jobs associated with that? We have maintenance technician, automation technician, field service technician. So you can really see what the jobs are related to the skills that maybe your industry partner is asking for. There's even one down here, robotics technician, robotics intern. I would want to, if I'm building a program, I would want to make sure that I have those spots for my students so that they can learn while they're on the job as well as in the curriculum. All right. So we're going to switch gears, highlight 3 different states. And as I mentioned, if you're not one of these states and you want these slides that I'm going to go through for your state, definitely reach out to us. We'd be happy to get those for you for this month. So the first question is what's going on in Illinois, the first state we're looking at. And so first one to see how our Google search is trending for Illinois. And the top Google search change is actually dental hygiene. So students are searching for dental hygiene at a faster pace year over year than any other program. Surge tech, electronics engineering. There's a little bit more of a focus towards health related than what we saw nationally, right? In terms of the others, we have engineering, accounting, and education, and then the only CTE in the top 10 are barbering and nail specialist, which is interesting. So again, making sure that you're aware of what's going on in your market is going to be extremely important. Now, getting to the question I always like to ask again, is it me or the market? And in this case, we're seeing the trend in associates fall enrollment for US, and we're comparing it to the changes in Illinois. And actually what we're seeing is a very similar trend, although, almost, very similar. So very similar trend for US versus Illinois enrollment, both growing 4% in the most recent year. Which programs grew the fastest over the last 5 years? Here's cybersecurity again. So again, that lines with what we saw nationally. But then the rest, there's only 4 others that overlap with the national perspective: computer science, diagnostic medical sonography, and radiological tech. The other ones are system networking, computer programming, some child care and child education, building construction management, and surge tech. So again, while 4 of them overlap, the other 6 are specific areas of growth and enrollment in Illinois. From a job postings perspective, we're up 3%, not as high as what we saw nationally, but still above prior year. So that's a good indicator. And then for what programs are growing, psychiatric technician actually was also in the top. So very interesting to see this both nationally, but also in Illinois. Illinois might be a driver of that national growth as well. You can see some of the others, occupations that have a higher job posting growth: software developers, nursing, LPN, and nursing assistant, all the way down to even pharmacy technicians. Okay. So that's what happened in Illinois. Let's take a flight east to Massachusetts. The fastest growing programs is actually number 1 is business analytics. I didn't see this on the previous in Illinois. So that's a much 99% growth in program searches for business analytics in Massachusetts. We have 5 health-related programs, and then accounting and library and information sciences, interestingly enough. Wouldn't expect that to be one of the top fastest growing searches. From an enrollment perspective, again, here's the total fall enrollment for the US, and how does that compare to Massachusetts? And we're seeing, again, declines from 2018, but now we're back to an increase of 5%, still under 2021 numbers, but an increase in 2023. What programs are growing? We have 5 programs that overlapped with the national. The number 1 actually not overlapping. So it's biological and physical sciences, grew 39% in associates enrollment. The others that weren't overlapping: information sciences, legal assistant, registered nurse, and radiation therapy. Registered nurse is had such a boom In the previous years, it's actually been hard to see it show up as a fast growing because it's just it ballooned from what I saw. It ballooned in the last couple of years, and so to continue that growth rate would be pretty amazing. In terms of job postings, 7% growth year over year, and that's similar to the same percentage growth we saw nationally. And then similar to both Illinois and nationally, we saw psychiatric technicians grew the most in February. Real estate agents, nursing assistants, and you can see some of those software developers and some more both heavy and light truck drivers made the top list here. All right, now let's go all the way out west to Washington. And look at the fastest growing programs we see there from a Google search perspective. We have 6 health-related programs: surge tech, dental hygiene, clinical psychology, diagnostic medical sonography, family practice, and physician assistant. 3 were related to CTE, career technical education, diesel mechanic, airline flight attendant, and esthetician, skincare specialist. And then we also have library and information sciences. Very interesting that's also coming up again. From an enrollment perspective, the associates level, again, interestingly enough, we saw an increase in 2019 from 2018 for associates, but then a massive drop similar to what we're seeing here, except for the drops were much larger. 2021 was 15%, 2022 was 17%, and seeing a little bit of a gain back with a higher percentage of 6%, the associates level. And as far as what jobs are, actually the fastest growing enrollment at the associates level: computer science, health services, allied health, and cybersecurity, although cybersecurity is a much smaller growth rate, only 2%, whereas it was much higher for the other national and state. Those are the 3 that overlapped. So again, there's 7 others that were different in this case: airframe, aircraft maintenance, medical billing, baking, music, web digital media design, electrical electronics, and marketing and marketing management. So again, just relaying the information of you wanting to look local at these trends. From a job postings perspective, we have 4% increase in job postings. So again, just under the national percentage growth of 7%, but still a nice indicator for us that we're kind of leveling out versus continuous decline in job postings. And the fastest growing program occupations in Washington were software developers. We have truck drivers, LPN, nursing assistants, home health, so a good amount in the healthcare space, teachers, real estate agents, automotive techs, pharmacy technicians, and marketing managers. Right. So again, if you want any of those 5 slides, please do reach out. We'll have someone meet with you and go through those slides with you. We'd be happy to do that. So in summary, Google searches for academic programs grew 5%. Advertising programs searches grew the fastest at 127%. And Google cost per click was slightly up 1%. So it's getting a little bit more expensive to promote programs overall on Google. Fall certificates were up 12%. So I think we might have hit the bottom, hopefully, in enrollment. We should start seeing an uptick. So the question I would ask if I were you is, am I experiencing similar growth compared to enrollment in my market at both the certificate and associates? Because now we're seeing that growth uptick. And I think anecdotally, I've been hearing that from institutions that we work with. Cybersecurity continues to be a just a sustained growing program, both at the certificate and master's level or associates level. right? So 19 and 20% on average over the last 5 years. And in February, after years of declines year over year, February was the first month that we've seen year over year growth, 7% in job postings growth. And just a reminder, when you're looking at occupation data and you're comparing it to your programs, try to get data that helps you understand where do your graduates actually go once they graduate. What jobs do they get? So that yes, you want to have that picture of the occupations that they're quote unquote being directly prepared for, but understanding that most of your students won't go into those unless it's nursing, where almost 80% of graduates actually go into nursing. In most other cases, a very low percentage actually go into those quote unquote direct prep areas. A little bit stronger again at that CTE level as well. And then the importance of looking at this for your market, your region, around your campus. What are the trends, and what are employers looking for? What are the fastest growing occupations? What skills are they looking for? What skills lead to better outcomes for your graduates? And so having that local perspective is very important. All right. Be happy to answer any questions, if there's anything specific we want to look into. And while we do that, just want to remind everyone, we do this on a monthly basis. So our next webinar will be April 24th for the community colleges. We have our bachelor's one tomorrow, but again, also on April 25th. If you haven't subscribed yet to the podcast, where we're talking about different growth initiatives and what's working out there, I highly suggest listening to our Grow podcast, and also our book on program evaluation and management is available as well, if you want to learn a little bit more about kind of our methodology and data. And then a question for who should we ask for state-specific slides. If you can just reach out to info@graydi.us, we'll get you aligned with the right person for you. Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining this month, and we look forward to seeing you next month.